So you mentioned between the three of you, sort of that physical contact, just the experience of experiencing that together. Anything else that my daughter or young children are sort of looking for from that shared experience?
I mean, do you want to talk a bit about language?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, so it will enrich their language environment if you're watching it with them and interacting with them during the screen and after the screen. So that's sort of one area, and obviously the screen itself and the high quality language there can enhance it, because it takes you outside of things that you might see in your everyday life. So it's quite a nice, like books do. You read and you introduce language from books because it's outside of what's around you now. So that's helpful.
Yeah, I don't really have any studies to add to that, but from a perspective as a parent, I would say, often it's quite hard to start conversations with your parents, with your children. You ask them how the school day was, you get a one-word answer back. But just getting them to talk you through the plot of a show that you've watched together. It's about just having a common frame of reference. It's about having something where you're both there together, experiencing something from exactly the same perspective. So much of the time, our interactions with our children are get up, get dressed, and you're getting through the practical stuff. And just having that, we're seeing something from the same perspective at the same time, is really, really important. As a stimulator of shared conversation, but also just from the point of view of it helps things, it would help them to see other things from your perspective, having you had that experience of seeing things from your child's perspective.
So at the risk of becoming a mansplainer, actually you think that my daughter would benefit from sort of recapping following an episode, sort of talking her through it at the time, post the episode? Yeah,
so that is an area where there is really good quality evidence. So kind of back to general principles for good screen content, particularly for young children, back to this idea of kind of young brains struggle to make predictions, struggle to keep up, and this idea of repetition is really, really important. And that, firstly, it's about viewing the same thing again. The genius of Teletubbies, you watch a 2-minute video clip and then it goes back to the Teletubbies and they say again. We as adults groan when we hear that because our brains have extracted the maximum information from it the first time we watched it, so we don't learn so much from viewing it again. So we hate the idea, but a 2-year-old loves it. And there's really good quality evidence that watching the same thing again, and watching, I think it was with 18-month-olds watching a video 5 times in a row, their attention goes up over time. And it's because each time they're learning more, their brains are getting better at making predictions. They struggle to process it, they struggle to understand what's happening the first time round. Second time round, they can predict what's going to happen better, so they actually learn from it better. So good quality content will feature repetition all the way through. So this is like characters having an entrance song. Every time that Iggle Piggle enters, you have the Iggle Piggle song. It's about kind of particular elements repeating in different contexts within a story. It's about they'll retell the story that what happened at the end of the show. In the Night Garden they do that as well.
Bing does that.
Bing does that. And that's a marker of good quality content. Children need to process the same information multiple times in different ways, and it helps them. So absolutely talking with your daughter afterwards about the show that you watched is a really, really crucial part of her learning and will definitely help. Good evidence for that.
I think when your daughter grows up, it will also be relevant in later childhood and in adolescence. So we do know that active engagement with content is critical. It's both when the content is positive, also when the content might be disturbing or having a negative impact on them. It's really critical to have that active communication pathways regardless of age. I think critically as well, just hearing both of you talk, that what is good for child development isn't different on screens than wherever else in a child's life. It's about varied activities. It's about good quality interaction. It's about strong caregiver bonds. I think we always need to think about that screens aren't this special, they are special in that they're engineered in certain ways, but what makes a good childhood is generally quite stable, and it's a good way to start judging, naturally probably putting your child in front of a screen for multiple hours and not engaging is bad, just like it would be leaving them somewhere else and not engaging with them. So I think something to think about when we're making these quite complex judgments as parents, as policymakers, as researchers.
Can I just come in and make a point? I half agree with that point and I half don't agree. Can I just say something quickly, or did you want to get on something else?
Very quickly,
Okay. So basically, so there are kind of what the really, really important thing that is different about screens to the real world, yeah, is that screens contain a constant flow of information, yeah? And we have in us inbuilt a very kind of early developing brain mechanism to automatically pay attention to movement when it's present anywhere in our visual field. Yeah, this is where autoplay adverts on the internet are incredibly distracting, and so on and so on. Yeah. This is developed, we think, for evolutionary reasons, because movement in our visual field used to index threat, but now it doesn't anymore, but we still have this inbuilt mechanism. Yeah? So basically, from a neuroscience point of view, there are two ways that children can pay attention to screens. One is comprehension-driven attention. Yeah? I understand what I'm seeing. Yeah? I've watched this repeatedly. It's at a pace and a developmental level which is inappropriate for me, so I understand the content that I'm being shown. Yeah? That's one way that we can get children to pay attention. But there's another way that we could get children to pay attention to screens, which is just simply by cramming more and more fast-paced movement into the screen. Yeah? And there are two very, very different ways that target very, very different brain mechanisms. We can articulate quite well the different brain mechanisms. Yeah? One is definitely good. Yeah? All the positive benefits that Gemma was talking about in terms of kind of impact on education all come through comprehension-driven attention. Yeah? But there is good quality evidence that increasingly program makers are using the latter approach. Yeah? Cramming constant movement into the screen. Yeah? To target these very, very low-level brain mechanisms that automatically draw our attention to movement, yeah? And the reason they do that is simple, yeah? Comprehension-driven attention builds up over time, yeah? It needs to be really, really slow-paced, which doesn't immediately grab you, yeah? First time you watch, you might struggle to pay attention. Fifth time you watch, you understand it, so you're paying attention better as a 2-year-old, yeah? Whereas this, we call it salient-driven, kind of movement-driven attention is instantaneous. It works for everybody. It keeps you glued to the screen, even if you don't have a clue what it is that you're seeing. It's this very kind of built mechanism. So that, I would say, in response to your point, Amy, is a really, really important difference between screens, that screens kind of can be really, really packed with movement, and they increasingly are.
Yeah, and I'm not disputing that content and what's on the screen is a crucial determinant of the impact, and that what we watch, how we watch it, and critically also what it's displacing will be really important to consider the outcome of that viewing behaviour on the child regardless of age.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, everyone.